think you should.
Hey guys, welcome back to Whoscussion. We're going to be covering again the resurrection of Mars, followed by relative dimensions, and ending it with museum peace. I'm actually happy that we've finally got a part A that ended happily, and we're bringing that energy straight into part B. Resurrection of Mars takes place the second after the end of Deimos. Actually, we have with the Doctor heading into he's on the spaceship. He's been told, hey, we need to go save Lucy Miller. The Doctor's like, oh, I need to go save Lucy Miller. Tamsin's a bit miffed because she's like, hey, you're jeopardizing everybody for this Lucy Miller person. And the Doctor's like, I don't just randomly kill people willy-nilly. And I was like, oh, I think you're a bit lying there, man. And they actually fully addressed that in this story, which I am very, 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 very happy about. The Doctor ends up heading back to they're on Deimos, right? They are, right? Yeah. So he heads back to Deimos.
The moon of Mars, Deimos.
Yeah. They're on Deimos, and then he goes back there and like, hey, Doctor, we've got your friend Lucy. And he's like, oh, friend Lucy. And he's like, he's like, well, the only reason Lucy is here is obviously because somebody is totally manipulating me. I wonder who that could be. It's probably going to be another Time Lord. He hangs out with Lucy for a bit, and Lucy's like, hey, I actually travel with the monk. And he's like, you've got to be joking. So the monk is behind this. This is great.
Lucianus.
Yeah, Lucianus. That's amazing. And Big Finish, actually, because I think the voice manipulation from the Book of Kel's story, I think was actually quite good. And they made sure to not actually put, what's her name? Sheridan Smith's name on the marketing for that. Which is genius. So she's like, oh, I was in the Abbey, and he was like, the Kel's Abbey. She was like, yeah, how'd you know? And he was like, I was the apothecary. And she's like, no way. And he was like, wait, so were you traveling with Sister Maria? It was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, that's crazy. And I was like, hang on a tick. So I went back and actually listened to the Book of Kel's, and they don't meet. I was like, oh my goodness. So that was,
if she did, she would have been like, Doctor.
Yeah, she was like, oh no, this isn't good. So the Doctor's like, oh man, what the heck? And she's like, yeah, I was traveling with the monk. And he's like, whoa, really? And she's like, yeah, and turns out he's kind of actually evil. And the Doctor's like, yeah, he kind of is. He's just a tiny bit. He's not as evil as the Master, which thankfully you won't meet, because he'd probably could make you dead. But yeah, we need to sort out what's going on here. And she's like, yep. He didn't like the fact that I didn't like the fact that he was changing the web of time. The Doctor is
not killing people, basically.
Yeah, and killing people. And the Doctor's like, yeah, no, messing with the web of time isn't good. That's why I keep stopping him. And I think that, like, the monk must have really not passed his schoolwork. Looking at his TARDIS Wikia page, it looks like he actually did leave before he graduated. So I'm wondering if he actually honestly thinks that the web of time is just a made-up thing, whereas people who actually finished school were like, the web of time's real.
I mean, maybe. I mean, at the same time, I think he just doesn't care. Or I think he doesn't completely understand the consequences either. I think that's probably it in a nutshell, is that he doesn't understand that messing with the web of time could actually have disastrous consequences.
Yeah, he's like, oh, everything will be fine. I'm a Time Lord, so I'll be fine. It's like, no, brother. No, you won't be. So the Doctor's like, hey, they're trying to terraform Mars, and Lucy's like, oh, that's not good. They're going to kill everybody. And the Doctor's like, yeah. And they're like, you need to turn the gun back on. And he's like, no, I don't want to do it. They're like, we'll kill Lucy. And he's like, oh, this sucks. So he turns the gun back on and they blow up the escape pod. They had the lovely couple from Deimos. I was gutted. Man. I was like, no.
At that point in time, as it was happening, obviously there was just before the monk was talking about like changing time and like fixing the fact that that the Ice Warriors did this thing to the planet, blah blah blah. But basically, he was about to be like, I'm gonna change time, and I'm like, okay, so you're gonna go back and stop them from killing that couple, like gonna stop them? And it doesn't, and I'm like, oh yeah.
I was not happy. And Lucy's like, you really should have just let them kill me. He's like, don't ask me to do that. And then he has a conversation with Lucy that's so incredible. It's possibly my favorite dialogue I think I've ever come across in all of our Big Finish run, and that's talking except for Scherzo. Like Scherzo is just like in a league of his own because it's just those two talking for ages. But he talks about how ashamed he is of being the Seventh Doctor.
Oh yeah,
and
that was pretty intense.
So powerful.
Yeah,
because the Seventh Doctor knew he was a monster. That was like the mind-altering thing for me. Is I had never ever considered Seven knew what he was doing was wrong.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there and I had to pause it. I was like, what? Like, I had to like have myself some green tea to just calm down. I was like, Seven knew he was evil.
Yeah. And that when he became 8, he realized that he didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. And it was really great because when we get to the end of part B, there's this beautiful oh no, I won't spoil it. When we get to the end of part B, I need to talk about the scene again because my god, I love you, Big Finish, so much. You just got to listen to it. It's the Doctor just like he was like, when my last incarnation, I was God, and I realized, I was an angry god, and I realized that is not good. And like it just made like some points for New Who even have some more clarity for me. Like, I'm Time Lord Victorious, is the Doctor giving back into Seven. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, Big Finish, you make everything so much better. I love you, Big Finish. And Big Finish is like, we know, my child. And what is the Mars had aired by now? So when this came out, so that's great. So throughout this story and what's going on, Tamsin had got pretty miffed with the Doctor and ended up befriending the monk. And the monk's like, hey, I realized you're the person I should have been traveling with, not Lucy, because I was the guy who ran the ad. And she was like, oh, no way. And he shows her this planet Halcyon. And he's like, oh, they're the most peaceful people ever. And she's like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, but watch this. And they all die. And she's like, what did that happen? He's like, the Doctor. And she's like, oh, the Doctor's evil. He's like, you immediately believe me. I'm the best. And what I love about this incarnation is I don't know when the Rufus Hound incarnation exists, but there's so much in this performance that reminds me of the Rufus Hound monk. And I love that. There's this sort of like extension of the mythos of the monk. And it's just so wonderfully realized here. And so he's like, cool, I've got my new companion. This is great. I'm the monk. You're Tamsin. We're Tamsin the monk. This is great. And he's like, okay, let's go screw up the Doctor's day. And the Doctor's been forced to get the terraforming device to work. And they're like, we're killing the people on Mars. And I was like, yeah, oh no, you're killing the people. Stop doing it. You're evil. And Lucy's like, what are we going to do? And he's like, no, just shh. Shh, my child. And they start doing all of the stuff, and the Doctor's like, hey, I'm gonna make this place hot, and I'm gonna hop into this Ice Warrior armor, and I'm gonna help us get out of here. And Lucy's like, that's great. And everybody's and I absolutely love Paul McGann as the Ice Warrior.
It's so good.
It's so good. He's like, walks up, he's like, hey, we need to do some stuff. And then the guy's like, hey, wait, who are you? Doctor knocks him out, and he's like, and it's just like, it's fantastic. And you can tell Paul McGann is having a blast. Like, there's moments where I swear he's cracking. Like, it's like,
he's having such a good time. And it works for his Doctor as well. Like,
it fantastically works for his Doctor. And so Tamsin ends up trying to thwart Lucy from controlling this. The Doctor's trying to doctor the terraforming environment, and then the Doctor's like, hey, we're gonna go because I'm actually gonna blow up Deimos. And they're like, oh, what? And he's like, yeah, we need to get out of here. And so he's like, come on, Tamsin, come on, Lucy. And they're like, and they go to the TARDIS, and then Tamsin's like, I'm not coming with you. The Doctor's like, what? Just hop in the TARDIS, otherwise it's gonna blow up. And he's like, nah, I'm gonna travel with the monk. And he's like, oh my goodness, did the monk tell you I'm evil? Yes. And he told you about the web of time, and she's like, yes. And he's like, yeah, the web of time is real. She's like, no, he told me it was fake. And he's like, oh my god, Lucy, can you hop in the TARDIS? then Lucy's like, no, I want to see this breakup in person. She's just standing there watching it. I was just imagining she's like filming it on her phone. And Tamsin's just like, no, all you care about is the web of time. He's like, yeah, because it's extremely important. She's like, why don't you help the people at Halcyon? And he's just like, what? She's like, yeah, Halcyon, it gets destroyed. He's like, yeah, it's supposed to, because of the web of time. I don't want it to happen, but I'm literally not allowed to change it.
The funniest thing about it is that, like, the only reason that it actually really happens is because the monk causes them to come out early. Like,
so he is the reason it actually happens.
Well, he's the reason it happens at that particular time. It is supposed to happen anyway, but so it's just like...
It's fantastic. So, like, she's falling for the monk hook, line, and sinker, and the monk's like, he doesn't see anything wrong with what he does. And what's my favorite thing also about the monk is in his TARDIS, he keeps famous people's food in stasis.
Yeah.
I'm like, you are so...
The real Caesar salad.
And I'm like, you are so eccentric. Like, you're like the Fourth Doctor if the Fourth Doctor took a pill that was another Fourth Doctor. Like, there's so much...
The combinations of Fourth Doctor.
Yeah, it's like a Megazord of Fourth Doctors is the monk, and it's so fantastic. And I feel like he's like almost got this glee of being with Tamsin. Like, you and I are gonna get on like a house on fire. You don't care about the web of time. I don't care about the web of time. We're gonna have the best of time. And she's like, sweet, I'm going with the monk. Bye. And the doctor's like, you really, really disappointed me, Tamsin. All right, Lucy. And they're in the TARDIS, and then the doctor's like, where to next? Ice planets? Ice cream planets? We can go to all the planets. And she's like, remember, I don't actually like you anymore? And he's like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And she's like, and he's like, well, could I take you back to Blackpool? And she's like, yeah, but, you know. He's like, well, before we do, I ruined the last Christmas we had together. And I was like, yeah, you super did, man. You super ultra did. And he's like, I want to make it up to you. And she's like, oh, what? And he's like, I want to give you Christmas. And then she's like, oh, yeah, where? And he's like, oh, it's secret Christmas. And like, and that's the end of Resurrection of Mars. Before we move into the next story, which takes place pretty much directly after, I'm going to grab Harry Scurry's thoughts. Harry Scurry, your thoughts on the Resurrection of Mars?
Mars was fantastic. It really was. Like, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, it was really good. Just that's all I got. Really, it was fantastic. I love the monk. His new incarnation is fantabulously evil. And like and things like, you think, okay, evil Time Lord. You're always gonna think, the Master. That's just what you think. First thing that comes to your mind. But they managed to make an evil Time Lord that is extremely separate from the Master.
Yeah.
Like the monk, like initially the monk and the Master, like you kind of thought, oh, okay, the Master is basically an extension of what the monk was initially, but then Big Finish have come back and been like, okay, we're gonna make the monk a completely different character, but give him a really good reason for being around, and it really does work. Like, it works fantastically the way that he is with his the middling monk.
Yeah.
And the references to that as well, like the Doctor and his the middling Doctor, and it's like, really, come on. It's fantastic. Just the references, the attention to detail that Big Finish have is there's second to none, basically. That's just how it goes. So
they've pulled in some of the comic book continuity as well. I was looking on Taskbook here that there's an old 60s era comic that was the monk and the Ice Warriors working together, and Big Finish sort of allude that's when Halcyon gets destroyed.
Right.
So he this version of the monk is like, I already did that.
Right. Of course.
So Big Finish, it's interesting because like even New Who has really tried to pull comic book continuity in, with Stephen Moffat even having a criminal from the comics present in Time Heist, which I find so confusing because the comics are like tentatively canon, because there's some stuff in them that is like, where did that happen? So it's a bit sort of worrisome, but Paul Cornell he has a famous quote where it all happened because for the Doctor anything can happen. I'm like, oh,
Exactly.
yeah, all
So
right.
time is not relative to him. So.
Yeah, he doesn't even care. In anything else?
Except for that looming thing that never happened.
Yeah, I love how even the writer of the looming thing got rid of the looms. Like, I love it. He was like, yeah, that was really dumb. I'm going to write it out. And then he brought back Susan when he did that. That's great. Any other thoughts on the resurrection before we move into relative dimension?
Listen to it. Just do it. Just listen to both of these stories. They are actually fantastic. Like, on a whole new level of fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really liking the fact that like Lucy's sort of like, I still don't want to be with you, but like it's so cool. Like I'm so happy.
Yeah,
that
time
I'm
traveling
here.
is fun.
Yeah, she's like, it's actually amazing. Yeah, I was with an evil psychopath, but like now I'm with a less evil psychopath. It's great.
A less evil psychopath.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. But I know I've like sort of really harped on about this a bit too much, but just 8 being ashamed of 7, I am in love with that idea.
It was fantastic. I mean, like the thing is that like that's very much like a core component of 9 and 8, not 8, 9 and 10. That's
Yeah.
one. And their shamefulness of what turns to be the War Doctor.
It was originally meant to be 8.
Yeah, which is originally meant to be 8. So their hate for him, like it sells even better with that in mind. That they know that 8 turned away from being evil, but then turned back into doing this stuff, and that's why they're so ashamed. Like that they are completely ashamed of what they did because that they knew that they knew so much that they'd even chosen to not do it, and then just went back to doing it. Like,
like he couldn't help himself. Eh?
Exactly. Like, well, obviously, like there's more to it than that, but it's just like, yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and knowing that this
all the way.
The Resurrection of Mars came out in 2010, so like they hadn't retconned 8 was the War Doctor at this point, and so Big Finish is really writing home that this is fully coming. It's coming, which makes
it makes this last one we got.
Yeah, it's so annoying. It's so frustrating because everybody knew 8 fought the war except for Steven.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really pissed off. So Steven released his original 50th anniversary script.
Yeah.
And for a charity book, and they write a line. There is a line where 9 talks about the fact he just regenerated at the point where he's about to use the moment.
Yeah.
So even Steven knew 8 was supposed to be the one who fought the war.
Yeah.
And I'm so annoyed. Like, I love Sir John Hurt. I absolutely love Sir John Hurt. But if he had not been attached to Doctor Who, I don't think it would be that great of a loss, because 9 being...
I think he should have just been an older 8.
Yeah, I agree. He
old.
should just been 8 old, because the war's supposed to have gone on for ages. So
Exactly. And he could have easily have used a lot of his like life force in special ways during this war. Like he could have tried. He could have. Yeah, he could have got. He could have like easily have got like almost killed a bunch of times and needed to regenerate in that way. Not like fully regenerate, but you know.
Just heal. Was it the
way.
that coma that he can put himself into?
Exactly.
That can stop you from
And,
being
like,
blind day
basically
12.
Just makes him start aging. You know,
Yeah,
that sort of stuff.
I would be fully on board with that. If Sir John Hurt was still attached, I would love him to have been old 8, and I think that would have made way more sense. But hey, that's not what happened. Even though everybody, including Big Finish, was like, "Yep, 8 fought the war."
Yeah,
we're gonna solidify that. Oh wait, we can't now. So yeah, with that out of the way, guys. Again, I'm with Harry Scully. I suggest that you pick up Deimos and the Resurrection of Mars. They are $3 a pop. That's $3 here. So I don't know what the exchange rate is at the moment, but I think it's like $2 American. And probably nothing if you live in the UK. They've actually got a deal on at the moment for Lucy Miller's run. It is 99p for each release of Lucy Miller's run at the moment. You need to use the code REDBALLOONS. I'll probably put that as the top comment for part B this week. And you can pick up relative dimensions and everything else for pretty much nothing. And with that, we're going to jump into relative dimension. This is a Big Finish Christmas release. They don't really do that often, but we did get one last year, which was the extremely incredible First Doctor Adventures. Just I can't recommend that one enough, guys. It was actually fantastic. But relative dimensions is just after the last story. Lucy has gone on a shopping spree with the Doctor, and the Doctor's gone and bought gifts as well. And the Doctor's like, I fought some great evils, but none as strong as shopping for Christmas. And Lucy's like, yeah, I know, man, I know. So they're getting everything ready, and Lucy's like, who are these people that are coming? And he's like, well, they're called Susan and Alex. And she's like, oh yeah, who are they? And he's like, well, they're Susan and Alex. Yeah. And it's so great because they're like really darting around it, and I think it's because he doesn't want Lucy to ask him questions when he's alone about the fact that he's got family. I think he wants to have his family there and for their bombshell to be dropped. So they get everything ready. And she's like, there's bats. And he's like, they're not bats, they're flounder shrews. Surely you've seen them. And I was like, Big Finish. You can't bring in something from the novels and just lol, they've been here the whole time.
Yes, they can. And they did.
They did. They were like, lol, the flounder shrews have always been here. I was like, silly Big Finish. And it's a Christmas special, so Big Finish don't even, they're having a gas. And they've done what Russell does, which I love about Russell's era. Yeah, I know we harp on Russell's era a lot, but I love that Russell doesn't make Christmas episodes about Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is so good. And man, Stephen, your first two Christmas, man, they are hard to watch. But so they've got this silly novel expanded universe stuff all over the place. And then it's like, oh, yep, well, they're the flounder shrews. They've been around. And then Lisa's like, oh, I remember now. One of them was burned outside of my door once. And you're like, yep. They've been here the whole time. And there's winking at the camera sort of stuff. Remember in The Face of Evil where Tom Baker, the Fourth Doctor, that was just Tom Baker, looks directly at the camera and goes, the sonic screwdriver's not working. That's a bit odd, isn't it? I love The Face of Evil so much, and that's one of my favorite scenes in all of Doctor Who, is just when the actors are like, come on, when Peter Davison just gives up acting in Time Flight, he's like, come on bro, their mask is so racist, come on. This the joy of this Doctor Who, man, that's fantastic. But so they go, and Alex is like, he's not even going to come, Mum. Let's just go home. She's like, no. Grandfather's going to come. He's never late. And I was like, okay, Susan, are you going to start lying throughout the story? Because I think you kind of do.
She does.
Yeah. And so he's like, no, he'll turn up. He promised. He will. And they're like, oh yeah. And then inside the TARDIS, Lucy sees these time ghosts, and the Lucy's like, Doctor, there's time ghosts all over the show. He's like, yeah, but I don't want to worry about that until after Christmas. All right. She's like, yeah, but it's happening right now. It's not waiting for after Christmas. It's like, shh. I want to just have Christmas dinner, and then we can fight the time ghosts, okay? And Lucy's like, okay, whatever. And then she sees a time ghost of her, and she's like, yep, I'm not even gonna worry about that at the moment. Let's have Christmas dinner. And it's so beautiful. I absolutely love this. This episode is just filled with so much joy, but in a way where it's a joyous respect of Doctor Who as a show. Yeah. And it's not even an anniversary special, it's just a Christmas present to you, basically. This is Big Finish's Christmas gift to you. Even though you had to pay for the privilege, it's still a present. And in saying that, the actors are very present in this. I like Jake McGann. I love that Jake McGann, Paul's real life son, is playing his great grandson. It's my favorite. Yeah, I love that. It's so perfect. And so we come back to Susan and Alex, and the TARDIS appears, and it's on the other side of the road. And I was like, that is so the Doctor. I'll be exactly here. Not even. Not even close. Not even remotely. And then 3's just like, we did learn how to fly it again, didn't we? I swear that's what the 10th anniversary was all about. And so they land. Susan comes in, and she's like, I didn't realize you meant the one across the road. And she's like, I must have remembered wrong. I was like, stop making excuses for your granddad, Susan. He's just a buffoon, all right? So they turn up, and then Lucy's like, hey. Yeah, exactly. And so Lucy's like, hello, I'm Lucy. And then the doctor's like, oh, this is my friend Lucy. Lucy, this is Alex and Susan. Oh, yeah, hey. And
who are they?
Who are they? And then Susan's like, well, grandfather. And then Lucy's like, hang on a bit.
Hang on a moment. What are you talking about?
What? And Susan's like, yeah, no, he's my grandfather. And then Jake's like, yeah, I'm his great grandson. And he's like, but I'm just gonna call you granddad because it's so much easier. And Lucy's like, you time lords, man, you're so crazy. And and she's like, hey. And so things get super awkward. And Lucy like fully takes the initiative here and is like, I'm gonna walk Alex around the TARDIS by. And so they go off. And Alex is like, oh, can I get a lager? And Susan's like, not even on your life, mate. I'll clip you around those ears. I might be a time lady, but I'll whip your ass. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. So they go off, and like Lucy and him are having a gas, and they're looking at all these different places. And he's like, I didn't realize how large the TARDIS was. And she's like, but haven't you been here before? He's like, yeah, once, and I wanted to get out. Like,
yeah.
He was like, I wasn't having a good time. And then he talks about how like everything's getting better. And like it was pretty crazy to find out that I'm actually, you know, related to some aliens. And then he looks at Lucy and goes, hang on, are you an alien? She's like, what? He's like, you know, you creepy alien. And she's like, hey, even if I was, and I love this because this shows character growth, she says, even if I were, that wouldn't make me a worse person. And I was like, this is a Lucy that has grown up, and it's great because, you know, just thinking about the issues I had with Lucy when she first joined us is of that
like, oh, you big millipede.
Yeah, right. You know, that racism that she had, and I think since the Sisterhood of Khan incident, she's really grown as a human, not just as a character. And I really love that attention to detail was brought in here because it's like she is seeing the bad side of a past version of herself within Alex, and I really, really like that. And then that was handled well with some gravitas, and without it being all like, you know, oh, you're not being politically correct. There was just some genuine human conversation there about that sort of ideology, and it was just so fantastically handled. And I think from Alex's point of view, this makes a lot of sense because we know his culture is very, very xenophobic, and it's just wonderfully handled, and it just, wow, this is a Christmas special, man. Like, you know, family having to deal with like the awkward racist uncle, you know. It's like it's just handled so masterfully. We go back to Susan, and Susan's like, oh, hey, look, we became friends with not evil aliens this time. And the doctor's like, that's good. And she finds out that, oh, she's like, do you send them? And he's like, yeah, because last time you fully messed it up. Like, Susan, you almost wiped out Earth last time, so I needed to help you out. And she's like, thank you, but we probably could have got there on your own. And the doctor's like, lol, no, you really couldn't.
Like, lol. You think that at all?
Yeah, come on, Susan, I'm your grandfather, alright? Wow. And they just have this heart-to-heart, and the doctor's like, hey, so Alex, yeah, he got 2 hearts? Nope. He telepathic? Nope. Nah. You mustn't have done the right test. He has to be telepathic. He's related to me, alright? He's my great-grandson. And she's like, no, he's not telepathic.
It's funny how he gets so sad about the fact that he's not. It's just like,
yeah. And it's like, he's got no regenerative abilities. And he's like, really? Are you sure? She's like, yes, he's just a human. He's like, no.
He like feels like less of a man because of his.
Yeah, yeah, like, no great-grandson of mine's gonna be a human.
Like, exactly. Like,
and this is
it very clearly shows that he could not have been a hybrid.
Yeah, exactly. And even Moffat, you know, he goes about that with me. When Me's like, you're half human, the doctor's like, don't make me laugh bitterly. I am not half human. That is some dumb fan fiction from the 90s.
Yeah, but it's still kind of funny that he's afraid of a hybrid. Wouldn't he be kind of afraid of this kid?
Yeah. Hey, Susan, I'm afraid of your son. Why? He's a hybrid.
Yeah, I'm gonna let him totally take my TARDIS.
Yeah. See, you know, I'm gonna plug my fan fiction here. I had a hybrid prophecy years ago, 2010 actually, where the hybrids actually were like Saiyan hybrids, but they were actually better than the originals. Obviously, canonically, that doesn't make a lick of sense, but I don't care. It was fan fiction. It doesn't have to canonically make sense. Anyway, the Doctor is pretty gutted that he's got like a human in his family tree. He's like sitting there looking at his Gallifreyan biodata and like,
yeah, man, good old Rassilon would be pissed off.
Yeah. Rassilon would be so not happy. He'd be like, wait, my great to the power of 20 grandson is a human? That's disgusting. Puh. But it's so fantastic. And the doctor's like, it's funny because the doctor's sort of almost xenophobic here. Like, I can't believe someone in my family hasn't like held on to more Gallifreyan genealogy. It's so fantastic. And Susan gets so pissed off with him. She's like, he's your great grandson. He just love him. And he's like, yeah, but you know, he's not super cool like us. She's like, so? And he's just like, and she's like, well, you know, it wasn't really my choice to be left on Earth, so what other choice did I have? And the doctor's like, I'm going to awkwardly change the subject because you were speaking some truth I can't handle right now. So Lucy sees heaps of time ghosts and she runs back in and she's like, Doctor, I need to talk to you. And the doctor's like, oh, okay, I'll be back soon, guys. Just grab some juice or eat these brandy schnapps. I'll be right back. By the way, I really want some brandy schnapps. But they go out, and Lucy's like, hey, time ghosts. And he's like, oh, why? I just want to have Christmas dinner. And he's like, I told you, we should have sorted the time ghosts out before we came. And he's just like, yeah, that's a good point. I really should have sorted out the time ghosts before we came. And then Alex is like, hey, Mum, yeah, the console is moving. And she's like, she instantly turns into flames. She's just like, what? She's like, I told him to not take us off the planet. And she's like, where are you, grandfather? And she's like screaming off her head, like, grandfather, where the hell are you? And I was like, yep, this is Christmas. Like, this is Christmas. And she's like, bursts in, and he's like, Lucy and I are talking. She's like, I don't care. You promised me we wouldn't time travel. And he's like, yeah, but we're not time traveling. You must have been imagining things. And Susan's like, I'm a time lord. I know we are in flight. I can feel it. What is wrong with you? And he's like, oh, that's a good point, man. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, I suppose I should give you a Christmas present now then. That will calm everybody down. And he's like, hey, look, your Christmas present's the door to your room. And she's like, oh, that's cool. And then stuff goes all topsy-turvy. And he's like, no, don't worry about the time ghost, guys. It's fine. Just Susan, open up your present. She opens it up, and it's covered in muck. And he's like, oh. And Lucy's like, yeah, so one of the time ghosts we saw was a giant fish. I think it might have been in Susan's room. And he's like, okay, cool, I know what we need to do. We need to get the ghost fished and the past fish to smash into each other. And then they do it, and it doesn't work. And she was like, I know what you were trying to do, but I could have told you that wouldn't have worked. And he's like, yeah, you know what, Susan, you're not really helping right now. And he's like, sweet, I'm gonna hop into this temporal armor and I'm gonna fight the time ghost fish. So he hops into this temporal armor and starts fighting this time ghost fish, and I love it. I just love it so much. And so he gets phased out of sync with their time, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna psychic Alex. And Susan goes, hello, grandfather, is that you? He's like, hey, can you pass me over to Alex? And she's like, no, I told you he's not psychic. And he's like, no, he has to be psychic. I need you legit. Can you please pass me to Alex? He's like, no, I cannot pass you to Alex. And he's like, oh, sweet. Well, if you don't do this combination real quick, I'm going to die. And he's like, no, Alex is standing right next to this thing. And as soon as he says that, I'm like, oh my God, the doctor planned this entire thing. He planned the time ghost. He planned the whole thing. And he's like, Alex, you're right next to the thingamabob. You need to put in this code. And he's like, if you just pass me to Alex, it'll be so much easier. She's like, I cannot pass you to my son because he is not psychic. And the doctor's like, nah. And then Susan just starts yelling out the password. She's like, this is the password, guys. And then the doctor defeats the time fish. And she's like, and then he's like, yeah, I did it, guys. Aren't you going to herald me as a hero? She's like, no, because you're the whole reason this happened. And he's like, oh, was it that easy to see through my dastardly plan? I was like, dude, I saw through your dastardly plan, and I'm just an audience member. And he's all like, oh, I'm real sorry, guys. I'm just real sorry about this. But let's go have a snowball fight and make everything better. And they go and land. He's like, hey, Susan, I'm really sorry about stuff. And she's like, yeah, but I'm going to live on Earth. And he's like, yeah, but you know what? You know how when I was in the time fight, and I said if I died, you could give the TARDIS to Alex. I'm still serious about that. Alex should have the TARDIS. And she's like, yeah, but does he even want to go to Gallifrey? I don't think so. And she's like, you didn't even want to live on Gallifrey. And he's like, yes, that's fair call, but you know, he
does say you don't have to go to Gallifrey or anything. You could just take the TARDIS.
Oh yeah, you could just take the TARDIS. And she's like, yeah, nah, fair call. And he's like, cool, I'm gonna go tell Alex. And he's like, hey, Alex. And he's like, oh, hey, Granddad, Lucy and I want to travel around Europe. And I just thought to myself, this is amazing. Because, like, Lucy's like, yeah, I'm going to go on this trip around Europe. I'm like, Lucy, in his timeline, Earth was destroyed by the Daleks. Like, the Europe you're going to travel around is going to be awful. It's going to be just, like, slums and stuff. And I can just imagine she's thinking to herself, oh, I can't wait to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. She gets there and it's just like a bent-up statue of a Dalek.
Yeah. Crumble of pizza.
Yeah. It's gonna be so fantastic. She'll be like, "Oh, this is not exactly what I wanted," and that's that. And the Doctor's like, "Oh, all right, okay, well, I'm by myself again." And then he walks around, and then he does the Feast of Stephen, and I loved it. It was really great. Yeah. It was like, and Merry Christmas to everyone listening, to anybody who's listening. And I was just like, oh, you winked at the camera again. All right, well, with that out of the way, and I thoroughly loved the story. What were your thoughts on Relative Dimensions?
It was great. It was really good. I love the idea that he's like setting up. He's trying really hard to get his great grandson into the family business. And
yeah,
it's so ridiculous as well. Like it very clearly like does some stuff for him. Like Alex is very clearly interested in this, but he is still very much like you, which means he will do what he wants to do. Like it's not gonna work out for him. But yeah, it's still a good old time. Good chuff, good laugh. I highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm with it. It is a good time. It's a good laugh. The Doctor does something that I thought was like so strange, and even Lucy's like, that's weird, is when he does a DNA test on Alex. Yeah. He's like doing a DNA test and Lucy's like, what are you doing? I'm looking at Alex's DNA. And she's like, why? He's like, I want to know if he's Time Lord. And it's just like, he's not what? And it's like, yeah, but it only says that he's 7% Gallifreyan. How is he 7%? This is wrong. He should be at least 70% Gallifreyan. I don't believe this. And I'm like, dude, it's your own TARDIS is telling you this. And he's like refusing to believe facts. It's like, no. My great grandson.
I mean, it still doesn't really make sense genetically that he's only 7%, considering.
Yeah, that's why the Doctor's like fully confused, because Susan is full. Yeah.
So it doesn't really make sense.
And I'm wondering. Oh, you first?
No, go.
I'm just wondering if whether or not, because the Doctor talked about an incompatibility in their reproductive organs in what was it, an earthly child. So maybe that could be what it is that like it's surprising that the baby was even born.
Yeah, and that's because most of the human parts are the parts that matched them.
So maybe that
doesn't make sense.
Maybe that's why that happened. Yeah. Well, outside of that, I think this is just a really fantastic Christmas story. Again, it follows my favorite rule of a good Christmas special: is don't be about Christmas. Like, have it on Christmas Day.
I mean, it's still kind of about Christmas.
Yeah, but like
in like a
7%.
Only like only like 7%. Only in like everyone's joined together because it's Christmas. And it's
oh man, nothing beats like the pretend obliviousness of like the time ghosts. He's like, no, the time ghosts are fine. She's like, they're not fine. He's like, no, shh. I've secretly planned this time ghost. It needs to be here so I can get Alex to go to Gallifrey. It's so fantastic. Like, he's such a butt, and I love it. It's like, wow. Again, guys, we will suggest this. This one talks a lot about novel stuff from the novels. It talks a lot about some of the earlier Big Finishes. There's a companion chronicle about Susan on Quinnis, actually called Quinnis, by the way, if anybody's looking to pick it up. So they've tied in a lot of the expanded Whoniverse and brought it together without you really needing to know about it. Because Susan talking about past adventures is fantastic. Like in the pilot, back in 1963, she talks about some of the wider universe things that you don't need to know about, and I think they just add a little bit of flavor without them detracting. Like where Russell writes an awful episode and they talk about better ones in it. Yeah, don't do that. All right, well, with that, guys, we're going to go into our last story, Museum Piece. Harriet Scully, take us away.
Okay, so this one's very interesting. It's read by Nicholas Briggs, just Nicholas, which is fantastic because he does fantastic voices, and just really good. But anyway, so we are introduced to a general, and it appears that he fought in the Dalek War, which is interesting that it comes right after a Susan story.
Yeah,
because it is basically the after the Dalek War. It's pretty much right after the war that Susan was in. He's a general, all that stuff. He fought in the war, but he's one of the knights that we saw in what episode was it?
I think it was Resurrection of the Daleks.
It was one of the
Revelation.
One of the
Sorry,
Daleks
Revelation of
episodes.
the Daleks.
Revelation, when they were. So this is probably not actually right after Susan. Then actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, no, it would be after.
Way later.
Yeah, way later, because they talk about Spiridon, which is where the third Doctor helped the Thals overthrow the Daleks.
Exactly. So yeah, so it's definitely way later. I don't know why I thought it was. I think it's just because they're right next to each other. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's one of the knights, and he became like a big deal, became a general, but he has managed to grow old, not die. So he's lived his life. He's an older man now. He's gone basically on a weekly visit to the museum, effectively, where the last of the Daleks are being basically put on display. Basically, they think they're all dead. But as it turns out, that's not exactly the case. So he's there. We get a brief view of his life. It's really interesting, honestly, fantastic. I won't go into it, but it's really interesting his perspective on this whole thing, and the fact that he's because he's one of these knights, he's fantastically trained in a bunch of different things. It's really cool. But anyway, as it turns out, one of the Daleks that is on display is actually still alive, and has been slowly trying to regenerate itself over a long period of time as he keeps coming. Basically, after seeing him the first time, knowing that he's this major threat, it's basically started working on being able to kill this person. But then the Doctor shows up at the exact same time as this Dalek's about to be ready to fire, and has to choose between killing the greatest enemy of the Daleks, or one of the other greater enemies of the Daleks. Has a bit of a conundrum there. Fires in an attempt to kill one of them. We're not sure who he selected, but at the exact time that this happens, a child runs out in front of the knight and gets himself killed with a blast. And yeah, the ending, that's effectively the chronological part of the story. That's effectively how it rolls around. But the real meat of the story is the real conversation and the viewpoints that we have from this knight, particularly the fact that he's fought this war for a long time, and the Eighth Doctor has come to basically ask him about what he should do if he has the chance to kill all of the Daleks, but at a great cost.
Gee, I wonder which Doctor's supposed to afford the war.
Yeah, he even says the knight who's capable of, who's slightly telepathic, who is kind of a very good amount of telepathic, at least, is able to kind of sense that he's in a great decision, and then as he's talking about it, he says, "This moment," and I'm like, "Oh!" And then it doesn't happen because the 50th happened. But anyway,
it's so annoying because Big Finish are sweet, Eight's fighting the war. The moments in the war.
Big Finish are so sorted, and this is basically, this was going to be the Night of the Doctor sort of deal. This is basically what it should have been. This is what the Night of the Doctor should have been. It should have been this episode in TV format.
Yeah. Oh, dude, imagine this in TV format. Oh my god, yes. Exactly,
and just the gravitas that Nick Briggs gives the Knight is fantastic, and the ruggedness really works for his predisposition to completely loathe the Daleks, where he also talks about how they worked on time technology and they were planning on destroying Skaro before Daleks even existed.
Yeah. And
as he's saying this, the Doctor's like, "Yeah, I know. We kind of had to put a stop to that." And he's just like, "You did what?"
Yeah. He is not impressed.
He is really not happy. But at the same time, he gleans psychically that the Doctor is thinking about the time that he had the choice to do that, and he's like, "Oh, I understand now." Yeah. So yeah, it was there's a lot to unpack out of this episode. I really don't want to ruin it, but honestly, like it's really short. There's only a real short space of events that happens. It's very succinct, but there's so much to it. Like just every single word has so much meaning.
Yeah.
And that's why I freaked out a little as soon as he said the moment. I'm just like, it was meant to happen. It was meant to happen. It was meant to happen like this.
So much of this story as well, especially where it's placed, is it so echoes what he was talking about with Lucy, is when I'm alone, I become 7 again.
Yeah.
And, you know, just after Christmas, he's alone. We don't know how long he's been alone for, but he's been alone long enough where he comes and he talks about this decision. You know, he's been pondering wiping out the Daleks.
Yep.
And it's just, it just aggravates me so much that, like, everybody was on board for Paul to be the warrior that fought the war.
Yeah.
And just so much of this is connected so beautifully together that it not being the payoff is a disservice to your fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a disservice to the character of the Doctor. And I'm just like, what? It's meant to be an anniversary is like a respectful time of the events. What?
Yep.
I am utterly confused as to how he thought making up a new incarnation would work and just be accepted. I think he thought it was like subverting expectations, but this isn't the way you do that.
No.
Just not even at all. I'm with Harriet Scully. I don't want to really divulge much of what happens here, but the conversation, this episode, pretty much about 80% of it's just two dudes in a room, and it is some of the greatest character dialogue I think I've come across in a long time. I've never listened to this story before, so I was very much just sort of blown away. And as Harriet Scully said when he said this moment, and I was just like, wow, everything was getting ready for Paul to be the warrior in the war.
I was so ready for it.
For me, I think this is the first time, I think it's the only time really, I felt the ferocity of the Daleks.
Yeah.
For me, I think this story really made them the threat the Whoniverse always says they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we never really get, especially in New Who, we never get scary Daleks in New Who, ever. And just like, because without ruining it, there's POV of the Dalek. And just like the thought pattern behind what the Dalek is thinking. And hey, so sorry about that, guys. Harriet Scully's had to head off, so I'm just going to wrap this up real quickly. So, again, I thoroughly recommend this. There is some brilliant character nuance here, and it's some of the strongest writing I think I've come across in a while in Doctor Who. I think Big Finish always shine, but this really is probably one of the strongest stories they've ever released. This is free, so you can pick it up from their website, and I thoroughly recommend it. We'll catch you all next week.